Well, we're back in the saddle again.
Giddy up!
Coming at ya for season 4. We are Red Weather Christians.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Jen.
And we are expats living in Spain.
Trying to restore faith in humanity, one story at a time.
So, we are trying to highlight some feel-good stories because we saw a show that transformed our lives.
Oh my goodness. You probably know it. You've probably seen it. It made us laugh. It made us cry.
And it made us reevaluate how we see our own lives and our own kids' lives.
Yeah, so if you haven't guessed it yet, it has to do with football, not American football.
It's Ted Lasso!
Woo! If you have not watched Ted Lasso, what are you doing? What have you been doing with your life?
Reading books and other things, that's fine. Learning languages, great. But if you're already watching and mindlessly consuming whatever media it is that you're consuming, other than this podcast, you gotta watch Ted Lasso.
Yes, exactly. This show just makes you, well, it makes you feel really good, but it makes you want to be a better human.
I've never seen such overwhelming positivity be that funny, corny, and not kitsch.
And heartwarming, so heartwarming. Oh my goodness, there was this one scene where a couple of guys hug. They just hug each other, and I'm practically bawling. It's just so emotional. The goodness emanating.
And this is coming in the midst of lots of swearing because it's a British TV show.
Yeah, the F word abounds.
And that doesn't get in the way of the good messages.
Right. It didn't even bother me at all.
Anyway, we took some things from that, the overwhelming positivity, and realized, hey, our seasons here with Red Weather Christians might have been a little bit negative Nancy's.
Yeah, a little complainy pants at times, kind of complaining about like, well, here's what I don't like about Christianity, and here's another thing I don't like about it.
It might have been a Debbie Downer. Wah, 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 wah.
But we want to change that, so we are going to focus on good things, like restoring faith in humanity things.
I can use one example from my life. My dad dislikes Joe Biden and anything Democratic. Really.
Oh my gosh, we should get him one of those puzzles that on the box of the cover, it's a picture of Trump, but then when you put the puzzle together, it's Biden.
I've never seen that, but that's great.
Oh man.
But I urge him on always when looking at these political things that just rile him up to look for the good. Please look for the good. Look for the good that's happening in the United States with Joe Biden leading the way. You might not like him. You might not like the Democratic Party or what they stand for, but look for the good.
Yeah, I think for several years now, in the States especially, it has been really complainy pants when it comes to politics and all the rest. But people are just like waiting to complain about something, and so we want to shift away from that.
Right. We want to look for the good wherever, whenever we can.
Yes. We hope that as you listen, you become more mindful of the good, and that if you don't see it, you do it.
Or you be it. So another thing, I like to watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and he's got what seems to be fun, interesting news stories highlighting something or another, but always kind of highlighting how bad that thing actually is. So a recent one was about organ donors, or the whole business of organ donation, and how it's kind of inefficient and not so great, but organ donation is actually really, really good.
And he had a story of how great organ donation can be, right? Didn't he highlight a story?
Yes, he tried to highlight that one or other stories where it just pulls on your heartstrings and you're like, wow, that's amazing. That's why this is still a good thing. But again, the whole idea of most of those clips are, look how bad this is. Look at this company and how terrible they are. Look at this terrible way that they've done this. Look at this lack of oversight on this thing.
So why do you watch it, Steve?
Well, I appreciate it and like it, but I don't want to get caught up in only seeing the negative of these things. he does encourage to change things. He highlights these things so that we see that we need to change them. So there's reason to show some of the bad things that are happening. However, I'm going to try to focus on the good.
Yes, you, when we were practicing this episode, which we practiced this time, which is crazy, you had a quote that I thought was very good. What was it, Steve?
Well, you can think about this in maybe any sort of athletic event. You cheer your team on, right? It's not so good when you cheer for bad things or when you boo the other team. People look at you like, what are you doing? These kids are like 9 and 10 playing football. What are you doing? You cheer the good. You don't boo the bad.
There it is. There's the quote. Cheer the good. Don't boo the bad. So that's what we're going to try to do. Give you a little glimpse of the good, a reminder to actively seek it, and to be a better human.
One of those good things that have happened to us since we've moved to
Spain,
if you didn't catch that in the tagline, is we started walking a lot more.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot more. I walked all the time in Ecuador. Maybe you were teaching full time, so you weren't walking as much. But all that to say, there's a culture here of walking, which is different from in the States, or at least in the places in the States that we have lived. So we appreciate that.
But there's another aspect to walking a lot more in this country that is really, really good.
So good. Makes me feel like a queen.
Yeah, might make you feel like that.
Steve is a little bit more indifferent.
But, you walk and you have to go along streets, and then sometimes you try to cross a street. And in the States, it can get a little hairy.
Yeah.
You're looking for bikes, you're looking for cars, you're looking for trucks, you're looking for semis, you're looking for things to run you over and not care.
Well, I remember when we were in Miami getting our visas to be able to live here in Spain. We got them. Good news, focusing on the good. But we were walking around a little bit, and nobody else was walking, and we were crossing the street, and we waited for, the crosswalk sign to go on. And still, cars almost ran us over. There was a car turning right at a red light. And because the culture isn't so much walking there, they didn't even think that there would be a pedestrian crossing. And here we are, walking to Krispy Kreme to get Steve's free birthday donut.
That is correct. I love me some free birthday gifties.
So good, so good.
So here in Spain, when you go to try to cross the street, in the city proper of Valencia, there are lights and there are things that tell you now you can walk, now you can't, whatever. But in the pueblos where we're at, there are just lines,
Crosswalk lines.
On the street.
Yeah.
And if you get to them and you want to walk across the street...
Now this is the crazy part. Are you guys ready? Buckled in, ready to go? You just cross. You just walk across the street.
And the cars will stop for you.
Yeah. It's crazy. And this is why I feel like a queen, because I am not used to that. In Florida, I would go out into the middle of the street in a crosswalk, hold my hand up, stop, and make sure it was safe before my family crossed, because cars wouldn't stop there.
They would really just go around her at that point. They didn't stop for her.
I have been honked at. Anyway, not focusing on that, though.
How great is it that people are alert and aware of other human beings waiting to cross the street? Not really waiting, though. They're just going to cross. We have had many times where we're driving and this person never looked at us. And we're like,
oh my God. No, it's a mom pushing a stroller. She doesn't even look, because people here stop for people in the crosswalks. They just do.
And you still look. I mean, we have a habit of looking. They still tell you look, especially if you're coming out between cars. You look, because sometimes they can't see you as well as you'd hope.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people parking anywhere they can find a parking spot. So, there might be cars lined up on the side of the street right before the crosswalk and right after the crosswalk. But that's another thing, too. Even in the city, cars do not park in the crosswalk. They don't. They park everywhere else, but they will not park in the crosswalk.
They will double park before parking in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
But it's just so good, because imagine what this does. It makes someone feel safe, just willing to change sides of the street if you want to.
Yeah, and sometimes you need to. You need to get to the other side of the street.
Right, and it makes the drivers way more aware of their surroundings. We know Jen had to do most of the driving in the beginning because she was the only one on the rental car agreements.
Because it was cheaper.
For a woman
you know
driver.
Steve, you know.
So you have to be hyper aware of, like, oh my gosh, was someone trying to cross the crosswalk? Did I not stop for them? Oh my gosh.
Well, I did almost hit a biker. Yeah. It wasn't a crosswalk, though. Okay, in my defense, I'm not a crazy driver. I am an excellent driver. My dad lets me drive in the driveway on the weekends. If anyone knows that reference, major points to you. Anyway, I'm entering a roundabout, and this biker, apparently because Steve told me afterwards, I never saw him, came off of the sidewalk and then entered the roundabout right as I was entering. I never saw him until he was a foot away from my face on the other side of the car window, and I had a heart attack.
No one was hurt.
I did not actually hit him. I had to brake hard. He had to brake hard and swerve.
There were waves of apology. All was well.
Yes.
It was actually good. It was refreshing to know that nobody was hurt and everybody understood this was probably not their best moment.
Right. Maybe he was like, hey, maybe I shouldn't just bounce right off the sidewalk and into the road. It wasn't a crosswalk. Again, not a crosswalk. And bikers, they're faster than pedestrians. Though I will say this, in the city especially of Valencia, oh man, those scooters scare me to death when I'm driving. Because oftentimes the cars will just get like a blinking yellow, like just go when it's safe. And the blinking yellow is for the crosswalk. And we're in the city. It is packed with pedestrians, cars, things are going on all around you. And these scooters come in hot.
Electric scooters.
So I always have Steve look for me. Like, all right, tell me if I'm clear on my right. I'll look on my left. And then we'll go.
Right. So we figure that crosswalks also have maybe a more metaphorical meaning to them in life.
Yes. So the crosswalks of life. When you need to cross from one street to the other. Which brings me to a quote from one of my favorite blogs, The Marginalian. Maria Popova says, "We know that everything changes, that everything passes, transitions from one state to another, from one stage to another, and yet, in our irrational longing for permanence, we try to hedge against change. Denounce it as deterioration, dread it as a prelude to death." Woo!
That's tough, but I do have some discussion points here.
Oh, yes, please, discuss.
When she says we try to hedge against change, I feel like maybe this person has never been a parent.
Oh, gosh, that is the darn truth.
If you're thinking about being a parent, and you're thinking, I want to have a child, you are not hedging against change at all.
You are guaranteeing yourself change every single day of your life for the next 18 years at least.
And then some, yes. Not just literal changing of diapers. We're talking changes of their personality, changes of what you have to do.
Changes in expectations.
So anyway.
The gamut.
As just an adult, which is a totally fine thing to do in life, just be.
Without kids, you mean?
Right. You could try to hedge against change, and maybe you limit the amount of change that you allow into your life. You're like, I've got a good thing going here, not going to change it, not going to do it.
Yeah, but I actually understand when you're talking about having babies, it's like, man, I get it though. If you have a baby and kids and they're changing all the time, wouldn't the rational thing to do be to limit the amount of change in every other aspect of your life just to kind of keep your sanity? I kind of understand that. So, with 3 kids, we decided to move to Ecuador and then to Spain. Yep.
So for us, it's similar to what Heraclitus said, that the only constant in life is change.
So why not embrace it?
And move to various countries.
Oh my gosh. Move to Spain, be our neighbors, it'll be great.
So we've mentioned these changes that we've enacted in our life, one of which being the first big move to Ecuador. We started the idea that we wanted our kids to be bilingual. We've probably mentioned that before.
We have definitely mentioned that before. And their little brains just soaked up Spanish like a sponge. It really is true. Everyone says, oh, their brains are like sponges. They are. So they're all probably better at Spanish than we are still.
Brains are also squishy if you were to grab them.
Oh, good to know. Good
Like
to
a
know.
sponge, like a sponge. You sit there like little sponges.
Yes. Fantastic. And so we learned a lot of Spanish while we lived in Ecuador. But then we realized, okay, this big change that we made of living in Ecuador, we'd always kind of thought, okay, let's stay in Ecuador for 6 years and then we'll move back to the States. But then when we were in Ecuador, we realized, well, we don't have to move back to the States.
Living abroad is actually a good thing.
And it's also, for those listening, it's not so crazy. I think people look at us and they're like, you guys are so crazy. I can't tell you how many times people have used the word crazy to describe us in these like moves to Ecuador and Spain. And we get it. I would call us unconventional, maybe. Like we aren't living the conventional life of living in America.
Yeah.
Okay. But I wouldn't say that it's crazy. If you do it, you realize like, oh, okay, that's not.
Yeah, but there are things about our journey to Spain that people were like, wow, that worked out, I guess, well for you. That was a little crazier than I would have done it.
Okay, well, the crazy part, and I guess I have to concede. Here. The crazy part was that we decided to move to Spain in, well, what month did we definitively decide? It was of this year.
May.
Yeah, so.
Late May.
Yes. We decided in May to move to another country. We did not have visas for this country, and we needed to get to Spain by September 7th, I think is when school started. So we didn't want to get here on like the 6th and like the boys go to school the next day. So, but then insurance started on the 1st. So we got here September 1st.
Yep.
On a tourist visa. And then we're still like in the process of applying for our non-lucrative visa to live in Spain on a more permanent basis. So then in October, we had to all fly back to Miami to pick up those visas and then fly back.
Which is where we had that crosswalk experience.
Yes. It was a crazy contrast to the last month of living in a place where people stop as soon as they see any possibility of a human in their peripheral vision coming across the crosswalk.
Yes. Again, to highlight the crosswalk, this morning I went for a run. I wasn't planning on crossing the road, but I was coming to the crosswalk as a runner, and the van opposite me decided I must be planning on crossing the road, so they stopped. And I was like, guess I'm going to cross so that you don't, and I don't feel awkward about this.
Oh, that's so funny. I've totally been in the same exact situation, like outrunning the same thing. Yeah, I was like, I'll just cross. What the heck?
So the other crazy part that people tell us is that I booked an Airbnb for the first 2 weeks and said, we'll just find an apartment to rent. It'll be totally easy.
It'll be totally fine.
I'm sure I can find it.
Everyone tells us like, ooh, it's really difficult renting apartments in Spain. Like people don't like to rent to people like you. People like us being, we don't have any kind of like residency. We don't even have our like NIE numbers, anything. We're just like, hi, we're here.
And we have money. Is that good enough?
And it turns out it is good enough.
For some places. But that's also maybe not a great thing.
It was very risky, I will say. But then at the same time, if we weren't able to get an apartment, we would have gotten a different Airbnb. Like it would have been okay. It's just that with a change like this, we could not account for everything. We just couldn't. But we went in knowing that, and we went in knowing like this is going to be a little bit stressful for me. I don't know if Steve ever gets stressed out, but I certainly was a little bit. But I was just trying to, do my breathing exercises and whatnot.
Yeah, so a little crazy. Not crazy, maybe just unconventional.
Yeah, but we did end up getting into an apartment literally the day that we needed to move out of our Airbnb.
Yes. It worked out. Totally worked out. Totally normal. Unconventional, totally normal.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. Okay, there's another quote that I love If you know me, you know I love quotes. Man, I love them. Because I feel like people put into words what I am thinking and trying to express just so much more eloquently. So anyway, this one's from artist Anne Hamilton. She writes, "One does not arrive in words or in art by necessarily knowing where one is going. In every work of art, something appears that does not previously exist. And so, by default, you work from what you know to what you don't know." And of course, some people would say that life is the ultimate work of art, right? So we're gonna relate this quote to life.
And changes and crosswalks.
Yes. Well, I do remember being in the city, walking around. We had decided to go to one of the restaurants that I had saved on Google Maps because, I see things on Instagram or whatever. I try to follow people who are in Valencia to find good places. And so, I full on phone out, looking at the map, walking the route, getting to this restaurant that I had saved. But then as we were walking there, we passed this other restaurant that looked decent.
Well, by decent, I'll add that I was fairly indifferent at wherever we went. But in Spain, I tend to look for one thing. Are they actually serving food?
Are people eating food?
That's a good sign.
Yes, because all over the place here are bars. And I say bars, but they serve coffee, beer, wine, and food. But it seems like every time we pass these places, they're almost always outdoor tables, so you can just pass right by these people. They are drinking beer or coffee. Maybe there's a plate of olives, but ain't nobody eating. And so we are not inclined to go sit down at one of those tables and order food. For one, we feel totally out of place. And for two, we're not sure if they want to serve us food at that time. It's just kind of like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, we're all off on the whole Spanish meal system times.
Oh, it's complicated.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. We found some great food. But right now, learning.
Yes.
Lots of learning.
Yeah, humility.
So what I learned is I saw plates of food that I would like to eat.
Plates of food equals good. Go
and I
there.
said, good thing. Jen, I don't know what your restaurant is, but this restaurant here has good things.
Good things. Food on plates and people eating food. So we went there and it was delicious. We loved it.
We've already been back.
I know we have. It was called, what, Bastard Cafe or something?
Something like that.
Ooh, explicit episode alert.
Alert.
Alert, alert. Oh, goodness. But all that to say, we had a plan. We had a goal. We were going to get to this restaurant. And then, we saw something different and we decided to give it a shot. And it was great. And it doesn't always work out that way. But, I think sometimes we get locked in on the goal and anything but the goal is bad. And it's like, oh, well, maybe a little change of the mindset when it comes to that could be good.
And in this case, not changing to the other side of the street was also good because the other restaurant was going to be farther and possibly more crosswalks.
Yeah, definitely, which would have been fine.
Fine, but farther.
Farther, yes.
Not guaranteed good thing, food.
Yeah.
So the other thing about change in general, and this could be true about the restaurant we went to, is that it could be difficult. In our case, less difficult for the restaurant. And it could possibly cost you more than you think it's worth. So someone who's looking at us like, I don't know, a move to Spain is more than I think it's worth. For some of you, that's true. Mm-hmm. For us, not true, at least for now.
Well, I'll give you a little insight into cost. There's a lot of upfront costs with moving internationally. There's costs associated with just getting your visa if you decide to hire someone to help you, which we did because it was so last minute we needed to. Plane tickets, lodging, these kinds of things. But once you get here
and get settled,
we just went to the grocery store today and we threw down like 200 euros, which is more than our normal grocery trip. But we got a ton of stuff because we're getting all the food
for Christmas.
Yeah, for Christmas, for the next couple of weeks and everything. So we got some Christmas gifts we went to Lidl, which is like a German chain, I think.
Yep.
And we got some like little Lego kits and stuff for the kids. So definitely more than normal.
Don't tell them.
Yeah, it's a secret. So all that to say, if we had gotten the same stuff in the States, what would you guess our total today would have been? Well, to put it in dollars, today probably would have been around, what did you say, $240?
Yes.
$240. In the States, had we gotten the same stuff?
Well, we compared it most recently to Ecuador because that's where we lived. And Ecuador, easily over 300.
Yeah, so Spain, grocery shopping is even cheaper than Ecuador, which, if you're listening from Ecuador, which I know some of you are, yeah, that was a surprise. But that also, we buy things like almond milk. So, yeah, in Ecuador, almond milk isn't so much of a thing, so it was more expensive, and it's not as expensive here.
But our pineapples here today were less than I saw them ever in Ecuador.
Dun, dun, dun.
So there.
Okay, but if you had to guess how much in the States?
In the States, I haven't shopped in the States in a while. But people in the States say that eggs are pretty expensive. We got 2 dozen today, so probably $500 in the States.
The eggs thing was so 2021, Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, I don't remember when it was. Remember when the eggs, like, everyone was talking about eggs?
Maybe they're still high price. I don't know. We
know.
don't live in the States.
And we're getting out of the loop a little bit. But in Ecuador, those groceries would have cost us well over $300.
Probably $350.
Yeah. And in the States, I mean, the few times that we've shopped, we don't get nearly as much stuff because we're like staying with people and stuff. But it's always like over $100, whatever we get, like a few things in the cart. Anyway.
The other thing that you think would cost more than it's worth, you're like, oh, but you had to pay. You don't have, like, you're not in the Spanish insurance system because you're not resident, so you have to pay for private insurance. You're like, yeah, we did. And yeah, we had to get the one that's 100% coverage. You don't have a copay. So we had to, pony up the $300 a month for a family of 5. 100% coverage, dental, eyes, medical.
Dental! So
specialists.
all the boys have been into the dentist already for their free visits. The boys are a little like, well, we don't get any, like, free, like, toy prizes or toothbrushes or a little thing of toothpaste.
Yeah, surprise. You went to get your teeth cleaned, you got your teeth cleaned, and that's it.
Because the culture in the States, but also in Ecuador, at some of the places we went to for dentists, they'll give the kids, like, well, even the adults too, like a toothbrush, a little thing of floss, a little tube of toothpaste, a little bottle of mouthwash, or a prize. For
all
the
these whatever these things. I don't even remember what they gave me because I hadn't been to the dentist because of the cost in the States for over 15 years. I went for the first time here in Spain for free because we have 100% coverage health insurance and dentists are covered in that health insurance. Crazy, I know. It's a really good thing.
It is. It's so good.
And my teeth are also really good. I wanted to shove it in Jen's face.
Oh, if you know me, you know I have really bad teeth. My friend April says that I just have soft teeth, and I just feel like that's very euphemistic, and I love her for it. But my teeth, for whatever reason, are so bad. We're talking root canals. We're talking root canals that get infected. We're talking then they have to extract the tooth. We're talking then I have to get an implant. Then I have to get a crown.
Jen, hold on. Let's focus on the good. What is the good about your teeth right now?
I have all my teeth in my mouth. Now, albeit 2 of the crowns are temporary crowns, but I do have all of my teeth as of just a few days ago when I had 2 big holes in the back of my mouth.
Such good things.
Ay.
Such good things.
But just a funny, quick thing going back to Steve's dentist appointment is the hygienist, now this is all in Spanish, she's saying, oh, when was the last time you had an appointment, blah, blah, blah. And Steve tells her, like, it was over 10 years ago or whatever.
I said, hace 15 años.
And
más o menos.
What did you say? She gave a look of kind of like, ah.
Yeah, she's like,
¿Qué?
¿En serio?
And so when she looked in Steve's mouth and looked at his teeth, she was expecting disaster. And Steve doesn't have a single cavity. The jerk.
Thanks, Mom. That's for the genes and the teeth brushing habits.
I have better dental hygiene than you, Steve. It's just that my teeth are the worst. Okay, moving on.
If we were if we were just going to look at statistics, I mean, the numbers don't lie.
Okay, so other good things that we're going to talk about. What are they? Let's get to it. Well, we want to just go back to the idea that, going back to crosswalks, we were not jaywalking when we made these changes in life. Were we, Steve? We were going across a crosswalk. There was safety.
Oddly enough, if you jaywalk in Spain, you do wait for
Oh,
cars.
yeah, you might get run over.
And you do need to look both ways.
I wouldn't suggest jaywalking. There are so many crosswalks. If you're jaywalking, you're just like either a complete idiot, a tourist, or I don't know, you have trouble seeing lines on the street.
No, I mean, I've seen someone just trying to take the shortest route across the street.
It's just not a great idea. There are so many crosswalks. Anyway.
Not idiots.
Sorry, that was negative. Too negative. Cut that. I think the overall idea here is change is good. Go ahead, cross from one street to another.
Change is inevitable as well.
Right. You might as well embrace it.
Look for the good in it.
And cross at a crosswalk where you are safe. I mean, make the change, but protected, you know?
Good change.
We're not talking like make a change and go cliff diving and do something super dangerous.
Could also be good and fun.
Maybe.
So let's flip this script a little bit because we talked about both sides of this. We talked about crossing at crosswalks and how that change is good. We've talked about differences within countries and how they treat crosswalks. We've talked about driving and stopping for people crossing at crosswalks. What we want you to think about is two things here. Where are you waiting to cross the street or hoping to find a crosswalk so you can make a change? But also think about this. Are you looking out for people who need a change and you need to stop and slow down your life to let them cross in front of you?
We are Red Weather Christians.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Jen.
And remember, don't boo the bad.
Cheer the good.
Mic drop.